Hey everyone, what's the catalyst for the biggest drive towards modernization in tech? It might be Broadcom's acquisition of VMware. You're watching TechStrong Gang. Hey everyone, it's Alan Schemmel. Happy Tuesday. We're going to do something we've never done before, right? And if you could do that in your life, it's always nice, I think. We're going to do a special edition of our TechStrong Gang. And in this edition, rather than doing our normal three sort of segments, we're going to take our whole gang episode and we're going to dedicate it to one subject. And we're trying it out. We hope you're going to like it. I'll give you the subject off the top. It's, as I said in the beginning, the largest drive or the biggest catalyst for the modernization that we've seen may in fact have been Broadcom's acquisition of VMware. Prove me right or wrong. Let me introduce you to our gang who's going to discuss this with us today. Some of them you are familiar, some not so familiar. Let me go to the familiar folks first. We've got, from Tech Field Day, he actually knows a thing or two about this stuff. Our friend Stephen Foskett. Hey, Stephen, how are you?
Very good. It's nice to be here. And also, of course, nice to be working with Broadcom on the launch of VMware VCF 9, or at least sharing info about it.
Absolutely. Also joining us, she is the CEO of Deploy Hub and knows a thing or two about modernization, as well as open source. Our friend Tracy Ragan. Hey, Tracy.
Hey, Alan, and thanks for inviting me to this special edition of the TechStrong Gang. Getting to spend time on one topic, like 30 minutes, is awesome.
Yeah, better than the usual 10 or 15 we usually do. Last but not last, and certainly not least either, our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike, welcome.
Happy to be here as always. And I've been hanging around VMware for 3 decades now, so here we go again.
Here we go again. And then our very special guest today, I want to introduce you to, and I hope I get her name right, I apologize in advance, Sabina Anja. Sabina is Senior Technology Product Lead at VMware Cloud Foundation. Sabina, welcome to TechStrong Gang.
Hey, thank you. And speaking of doing something new, here's my new thing for at least this week. So thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Hey, you never know. You may like it so much you want to come back again and again.
Hey, don't threaten me with a good time.
All right. Sabina, since you're the new person on the block, let's hear a little bit about your role in, your technology product lead at VMware for VMware Cloud Foundation. What exactly does that mean?
It's interesting you ask, because I think the role is very much a product of all of the change that we've seen as a result of the acquisition of VMware by Broadcom. And for about, let's say 7 or 8 years now, we had this product called VMware Cloud Foundation. And if you know it since version 1.0, well, things were a lot different back then. But basically, we had these roles as either pre-sales specialists and basically folks that were looking at the platform as a whole, kind of figuring out how does it integrate together? How do we go to market as one platform? Now, back in the days of VMware, this was one of, I want to say, many, many roles we had in the environment. And, you're kind of competing with vSphere, you're competing with the likes of vSAN. So you can imagine that the limelight was very, very narrow. I've worked with VMware for about 5 years now, and it basically went from one of hundreds of roles that we had as part of VMware to one of the central roles. I've seen my own role change in the past 2 years dramatically, where myself, my team, our leadership basically focuses on VCF only. Our job is to make VCF easy to adopt, is to take what our engineering team is building, what our product management team is kind of shepherding, and making sure that it hits the market in the cleanest, easiest to comprehend, easy to adopt, working directly with customers, getting feedback kind of way. So it's very much a reflection of the times and of the change.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. Gang, let's jump into it. Mike, I said my piece, right?
Yeah.
Who knew?
So
go ahead.
let's jump into this because it is VCF 9.0 and Broadcom and VMware before it has been making a case for an integrated platform for a while. And post-merger, it seems like VCF is at the core of that whole proposition. But Sabina, what's changing on the customer side that they want to have this conversation now where they're going to have a single integrated platform covering compute, storage, networking, and security elements as well? It feels like something has happened on the way the customer thinks about all this stuff. And what are they telling you?
I think this is definitely a two-part answer at the very least, where platform maturity meets market momentum. I mean, I think everybody on this call has been for about at least 2 decades, if not 3, I've heard earlier in this industry, and we've all seen the same things. I come from basically doing infrastructure at customers, and over time, you saw the same points of friction, whether the year was 2005, 2010, 2015, right? You want to deploy a workload, which is kind of what the businesses care about. They don't care about your network infrastructure or your virtualization engine. They care about, does my app work? Can I make money from this, right? But a lot of what goes in the kitchen and deploying this was who deploys what? What's the architecture of the app? How do I put all of this together? And for the longest amount of time, it just, infrastructure got bigger, but also very deeply siloed. And there was always a game of hot potato of whose fault is it if something breaks. I used to be a network engineer, so it was absolutely always my fault, no matter what, right? It doesn't matter. Storage breaks down, somehow we haven't provisioned the VLAN correctly on the interface. You know the story. But all of these things incur delays, incur challenges, downtime that costs millions, depending on the industry that you work in. And every company, due to current economical times and so on, you get all of these requests for do more with less. Like you have these teams that have been 5, 6, 7 people teams for years now, but the infrastructure has grown 100%, 500%, and they're still asked to manage all of it. So at one point, there's a point of convergence. How long can you go managing switch by switch, server by server, VM by VM, and not think of more of an integral approach? When you have like 2 pizza boxes and a switch, yeah, that kind of works to do it manually, times 10 as well. So I think VMware Cloud Foundation isn't new. What we've done to make it work a lot better is you can't see the seams anymore. It used to be that it was kind of a bundle of products, and customers saw through that, and they're like, well, look, we don't need 5 different products so that we can pretend we have a private cloud. Either get it together and make it work as one platform, or we'll continue in our own way. So what changed as a result of the acquisition was basically bring the product together, have this one interface to do operations on a daily basis, have one interface to do automation. I can tell you that from customer momentum, and again, I spend a lot of time with customers, one of the pieces of information I got recently was, you know what? We used to use your automation products, but at one point we had to work so many of the flows ourselves and spend so much time trying to understand it that we figured that's your job. You fix the platform and we'll just deploy on top of it. So the answer is we've met that critical moment in the market where it just isn't feasible anymore to configure manually or do automation 1.0 with any number of scripts and so on, with a more mature, solid product.
Adoption is so critical. Adoption is so critical in any cloud modernization that you're looking at, whether it be like Linux and Kubernetes or, HPC systems. The adoption is the problem. And Sabina, you said something very important. Most application teams are less than 10 people. And they're asked to be doing so much. We think about an application team of 7 or 10 programmers and they're coding all day or they're generating code, not doing any work at all. But that's not true. They are managing so many pieces. And the adoption is the one thing I hear, the biggest complaint from customers in terms of cloud modernization is the difficulty to implement a high performance computing system. Because these teams have so much on their plate that a centralized dashboard, a centralized solution is more important to them than building their own. So adoption really is the key to success in this area.
No, and I 100% agree, because again, you sit on too much software, it becomes shelfware. And then each customer kind of gets challenged with this. how can I make best use of what I have? And the first temptation is a little bit like how public cloud used to be, right? The reason why public cloud got so popular was it was easy to adopt. The friction was minimal, the credit card swipe was easy, and then at one point it kind of blew out of proportion, and it went beyond the credit card swipe and well into the millions. But it also started creating certain challenges: budgets, oversight, sovereignty, security, right? So I do think that adoption is one of the strongest points we can offer going forward. Like, okay, you have all of this under the hood. Think about how you can use it best.
So in my mind, though, one of the nice things about Cloud Foundation 9, I know, is the idea of multi-cloud, right? So I will tell you, I was around when the cloud first kind of came out, and, I looked at it kind of skeptically. And I always felt that we weren't going to move everything to the cloud, right? There'd be some stuff in public cloud and some stuff you want to call private cloud, you want to call it your server closet, your data center, I don't care. Some would be up in the public cloud, some not. I didn't see where I'd be keeping some on AWS and some on Google and some on Microsoft and maybe some Oracle or where have you, and then some in my own private stuff as well. And that, to me, that always kind of surprised me that it caught on, that multi-cloud sort of view of things. But again, a small team having to manage these platforms, the idea of having to manage 5 different platforms, 4 or 5 different platforms, is scary. I mean, it's downright, scary, wasteful. To me, one of the nice things here about Cloud Foundation is I need to go deep on Cloud Foundation. What runs underneath it is a lot less important to me than what runs on top of it. And I think that is a huge piece of this. Stephen, I see you want to say something.
Yeah, and I think that you're really onto it there. And I think that a lot of people listening to this, to be honest, are going to be saying, yeah, I've heard that before. That's exactly what I've heard from literally every company. Modernization, yeah, whatever. But the thing about VMware as a product is that VMware is the platform of choice for basically the big bulk of big IT shops out there. And VMware, yes, has been working on various different ways of helping customers to modernize their platform for many years. And yes, this is the latest in a series of such products. I mean, it's called vSphere 9. They did skip a couple numbers, but they certainly didn't skip a lot of learning in terms of getting up to speed with how to do this thing right. What I wanted to point out is that throughout, when we've been looking at this release, and when we've been hearing about it as part of our Tech Field Day events, what we're hearing is a very practical and pragmatic approach. It's all well and good to say, rewrite everything to modernize it, but nobody's going to do that. It's also all well and good to say, lift and shift and call it a day, but that's not modernization either. What I hear from Broadcom with the VCF 9 release is basically, for the biggest companies with the biggest needs, here's a really practical framework that you can deploy your applications on that achieves the goals of cloud, even if, it doesn't have the cloud weenies out there saying, this and this and that. It's practical. It's like, let's do the thing. And that has extended even to the point where some of the features have been reduced, some of the capabilities have been kind of refactored and refocused to make things kind of work the way operators want the cloud to work, as opposed to sort of meet the needs of those people who have their head in the clouds and the cloud purists.
Mm-hmm.
Just
what I love.
Point. To Stephen's point about that, one of the things also about VCF 9 is interesting is the way you approach Kubernetes. And if I went back in time, everybody thought Kubernetes would be the death of VMware. And if I look at it now, to the modernization point, the Kubernetes cluster is embedded in the virtual machine, and I use the same core management infrastructure to manage that alongside all my legacy monolithic stuff. as I kind of think that whole thing through, are you seeing more cloud native workloads starting to show up on VCF 9? And has that whole motion of monoliths and microservices just melded together into one management motion?
What's interesting? If you look at kind of what the desire for Cloud Foundation was for the longest time, it was basically a platform ready for anything. Because unless you're a day-old startup that's kind of starting some crazy AI, whatever ML based, you're going to have a mix of legacy and new applications. There's any number of large enterprises that say the magical words like Fortran-based applications, which harkens back all the way to the 70s, if you think about it. And you still need to support things like mainframes. You still need to support things that were written, like there are pieces of code in there that are, quite from a different decade at this point, but not from a different millennia, right? So you need to be able to support both. You can't say we're going to marginalize that somewhere at the edge of the data center. We're not going to look at the energy footprint. We're not going to look at how we secure that, because some of the most precious data in finance runs on that kind of code, for example. Right? But then you have all of this newness and goodness, right? There's a lot of discussions around AI being used for risk management, for research and development, right? So you need to marry both an infrastructure that is able to carry on and support all these older applications, more legacy style, more monolithic, first designed in 1982, and also this kind of like new microservice based, lots of database interactions, very storage intensive and network intensive, right? So how do you build for both? First of all, you need a strong hardware layer to kind of support anything, but then get the software layer to be in the service of this. And that's where we excel at it, because we build the features and you don't have to constantly change. You as the VI admin, you as the infra admin, the person that used to know and love vSphere now has basically a similar interface regardless of what you want to support going forward. It's your beloved vSphere interface that you've known since 1998 at the end of the day. So I know I didn't answer your question on the repatriation, but that's kind of, I was trying to go for Stephen's question from before. But for the repatriation, we've definitely seen an entire trend of certain applications moving from the public cloud. Like I've mentioned AI apps, there's definitely a concern from our customers of how much does it cost as my application expands in the cloud? Because they're very storage hungry. They require a lot of cloud operations as well. And with all the cloud environments taxing you for ingress and egress, then it becomes a little bit more difficult to control the cost, because you want your application to run properly. You're not going to look at it and go like, we can only do this much on it. So private cloud becomes more interesting that way.
Yeah. So I feel like we got to address the elephant in the room, right? a lot of people, when Broadcom first acquired VMware and rumors and then announcement of licensing changes, a lot of people thought that was, what a mistake. Everybody's going to move, because each cloud platform has their own in-house hypervisor, let's call it, right? And a funny thing happened on the way to on the way to the cloud, is people began to realize licensing prices or license prices were not the most critical factor in people's decision on, number one, are they moving to a public cloud, or at least some infrastructure to a public cloud? And number two, do they take, as you say, Sabina, that vSphere that they've been using since 1998 with them, right? And that, I think, is one of the big ha-ha moments, right? That people are voting with their feet and their pocketbooks and their moving vans to take that vSphere with them to the cloud, as well as upgrading what they're doing in the private data center, right? Now, Stephen, I know you follow this space really closely. It's kind of near and dear to you, but I mean, did you see that coming?
It's interesting because, like you said, I mean, the elephant in the room here is everybody wants to, well, not everybody, but there's been sort of this sentiment that, oh, this is all selfish and this is not about the customer. But that's not what I'm seeing from my friends in the VMware side. I'm seeing them very much focused on their customers' needs and very much focused on what, like I said, what is a practical way to move forward here, rather than what is the sort of the the I don't know expected app modernization approach. And the point is that, like you said, Alan, in your recent article on TechStrong IT, this was a catalyst for a lot of companies to get moving on modernization and to get real on modernization. And instead of sort of continually being stuck in that, well, we've got to redo everything phase, or just sort of being stuck in, well, we're busy with everything else, we can't modernize right now. It was an opportunity for people to, I think, move forward and say, what makes sense? What Sabina was just saying, what are the goals? Like, what do I want from a private cloud? Not sort of like, what does cloud, with a capital C do, but what do I want? What are the essential elements that I need there? I need flexibility. I need, the ability to grow and contract and to work in multiple areas, but also restrict from working in certain places, geographically. I need to have the ability to be much more dynamic and programmatic and software defined in how infrastructure is deployed, but I don't want to just set everything on automatic and let it roll. I need to have this be something that is modern and yet managed. And I think that that's the flavor that's coming through with this release. And frankly, it's maybe the flavor that was missing from, some previous solutions, and also some previous solutions from a lot of different companies in the space, which I think focused too much on modernization.
And, we have to look at who the customer is, really. When we do these TechStrong Gangs, we're always talking about the newest technology, all the cool stuff that's coming out from, as Sabina put it, startups. But who's really doing the hard work? If we look at the public sector, if we look at the financial sector, we look at telecoms, there is a huge that is the core of software, to be quite honest. It is where software is. And Broadcom has always serviced those sectors. And those are the sectors that tend to be more careful, more risk averse, and maybe running to the cloud wasn't their first goal. But they're now getting there, and to be able to do it safely within the kind of the constructs that they need to maintain in terms of how their software is built, how secure it has to be, and who's using it, which is an important aspect of this conversation. They needed a better way to manage the ability to move to the cloud, and VM started that. And that's where we started talking about high performance computing. But they couldn't get there that fast because of all the things we've just talked about. It is really hard to manage these environments, really hard. So you get down to that one dashboard, and you get to a place where you can actually have, multi-vendors, as Alan talked about. It makes it a reality for a public sector or a high-risk financial application that they're not going to break into microservices in the next 6 months. So this is why I think that it is a catalyst, because it makes it a reality for these types of applications, and not only the developers, but making sure the end users are protected as well. That's the goal. And this new platform and what the direction Broadcom has taken in VMware is making it real.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sabina, I feel like AI was going to force the issue anyway, because if I look at the way IT is going to evolve, I'm going to see a bunch of AI agents, and they'll be handling networking tasks, storage, compute, whatever it is, but it will flatten the IT organization anyway. So isn't this, at least to me, it feels like the natural progression of things was we were going to see this consolidation anyway.
I 100% agree, where in a lot of private equity groups, these conversations are basically old. So there was a need for something like this for 10 years almost, like something that's a platform-wide spans, and the future is in the intelligence of it. Right now, or for actually a reasonable amount of time, you were stuck with doing things like troubleshooting, particularly manually, right? You have to connect the dots. You have to know where to go into the platform to get the information. So a lot of the what made an SME, a subject matter expert, incredibly important is when they had like that quick thought about where do I need to look, what do I need to configure, what are all the best practices. But what makes infrastructure incredibly lean is when you can move a little bit past the kind of like nitty gritty day to day linking, errors on an interface. And more into what am I trying to achieve here? How can we get more efficient? And then you can do a more agentic way of running infrastructure. Like you're asking your agent, hey, give me the outputs on this interface. What does this mean? How should I go about it? And then you get a bunch of choices on how to best manage and elevate your infrastructure. So we're seeing but the first thing that you need to have is a continuous infrastructure. You can't do this when you're running 160 products to run basic application infrastructure. It's just too hard. And linking all of that manually, like we've seen customers try. And the biggest challenge is it's all constantly moving. So you're basically now stuck with trying to automate outputs between your different environments and software stacks to manage it. Like just log management. And I can hear any number of my engineering peers go like, don't start with log management and kind of prioritizing between all of the P1 alerts and so on. And is this an important log? Just all of this is so incredibly hard and massive infrastructure that there is an absolute need for a platform that's kind of all encompassing, and two, something that helps you get insights from it. Because one of the things we've heard from customers is this is changing so quickly, right? VCF is a whole, it's an opportunity and a challenge at the same time, because I'm used to my vCenter environment, and this is just so much more. And we've put a lot of tools at the disposal of our customers, like, hey, here's how you learn, here's how you align with their business priorities. But that still requires a bit of a mental change of thinking, how do we operate going forward? What is the best way? How can I be better and more efficient? And for an infra admin, that should 100% be an opportunity to kind of be with the next thing.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? And that's actually a great segue, Sabina. It's a day of doing things first, new things. So in addition to this special edition of TechStrong Gang, we have, it's kind of a first, a combined Tech Field Day, TechStrong sort of joint production. Spike Lee's not involved, but it is a joint production of a Broadcom virtual event. Stephen, you probably know the name of it better than me. Can I pass this over to you?
Sure you can, Alan. Thank you very much. Yeah, so we're going to be doing, as you said, a virtual Tech Field Day event. This is basically Tech Field Day, except that rather than using the standard Tech Field Day scenario where we're basically presenting in the room, kind of behind closed doors, we're actually going to be live streaming it right here on TechStrong. So we're going to be using the TechStrong virtual event platform, which you can register for, you can join in. We're going to have a day basically of deep dives into various technical aspects of VMware's Cloud Foundation as part of what we're calling a VMware Cloud Foundation VCF9 showcase focused on the modern private cloud. So that is something that I've been looking forward to doing for quite a long time. You've seen me here on TechStrong Gang. You've heard me talk about Tech Field Day. I've really wanted to try to do like a mashup of Tech Field Day and TechStrong, and that's exactly what we're doing. So check it out on July 29th. Yeah.
You can get to it, by the way. You don't have to look up some arcane URL. If you go to techstrongevents.com, it's the first one on there. You could click on it, register, and as I said, all the full day, and I forget there's 5 or 6 different sessions, isn't there, Stephen, are all available, streaming one after the next. They'll be on demand as well. If you can't make it on July 29th, it will be available for a few days after, and then eventually it will be available on the Tech Field Day YouTube channel, on the TechStrong.tv network stations, and so forth. But it is a virtual event. And I believe, Stephen, that some of the VMware Broadcom presenters will be live that day to answer questions and interact with the audience, which is always nice, right? We're going to interact with a real not studio audience, but a real live audience.
Yeah, and that's what I've really always wanted to try to do with Tech Field Day is somehow give the audience, the people who are watching these videos, the ability to ask a question and to be part of it. Now, the delegate panel, that's their job. They sort of stand in for that audience. But in this case, as you said, they're actually going to be made available. So a lot of the presenters from from those presentation sessions, including also some of the delegates as well, will be available to ask questions and answer questions and basically have discussions with the audience live. We're trying this out. I can't wait to see if this becomes a new Tech Field Day gig, a new Tech Field Day, TechStrong. Let's call it TechStrong Field Day. How about that?
I'm good with it. I like the joint production. I feel like Spike Lee. I should be front row at a Knicks game or something. But anyway, again, you could get to it from TechStrongEvents.com and you can register right from there. We're about out of time on this special edition of The Gang, though. Sabina, I want to thank you for coming on here into the Lion's Den and joining us, so to speak. But you're now an official gang member and you have an invitation anytime you'd like to come back. And we talk about this kind of stuff pretty often. So we'd love to have you on here. Just come on down. Mike, Tracy, Stephen, thank you for joining. Thank you for watching us here on TechStrong Gang today. You know, after this, we'll go back to our TechStrong TV schedule for the rest of your Tuesday. Enjoy it. But we hope to see you on the 29th. If you've used VMware, you're thinking about using VMware, you're just thinking about modernization, moving from private to public cloud or upgrading your private cloud. There's a lot you can learn on this Tech Field Day virtual event. Check it out. But until tomorrow, this is Alan Schimmel on behalf of TechStrong Group. Have a great day.